I used to think that the less you bother the team and the more ownership is concentrated on one person, the smoother and faster the tool adoption would be. I was wrong. I've rolled out ClickUp and other project management tools across teams under 50 people for 14 years. And the rollouts that were really successful, where the team actually came to love the tool, all had one thing in common. I didn't set up ClickUp for the team. And in this video, I'm going to show you why that changes everything. Let's get into it. Before we get into what actually works, I need you to have a reframe in your head with me. Rolling out a project management tool is never just about the tool. It's about change management. It's about getting people to change their behavior at work. For example, you want people to check the tool instead of messaging you every 10 minutes. Or you want them to write down key information and decisions instead of relying only on verbal updates. These are habits people have built up over years, and the tool can only facilitate that behavior change. It can't change them automatically. To get people to change behavior, you need to understand what makes them tick. What motivates them to adopt something new? Usually, it is a combination of things. The tool makes their lives easier, there's a cultural norm around using it, there are managerial expectations. And on the flip side, what gets in the way? Complexity, insecurity, or existing tools that feel good enough to them, even if they aren't great for the team as a whole. But here's the thing, understanding incentives alone is not enough. Think about it this way. Most of us know that exercising is great for us. And some of us even have gym memberships, which are not cheap. But how many of us actually go to the gym as regularly as we had fantasized? Knowing that is good for us isn't enough to make us go. And the same logic applies here. Having ClickUp set up and being fully on board with its benefits does not mean people will use it. Behavior change research is pretty consistent on this. People don't do things because they know they should. They do things because the benefit is obvious, plus the friction is low, plus someone or something nudges them to start. So the question is never, did we roll out the tool? The question is, did we build the conditions for people to actually change how they work? And if you look at it this way, you will realize that these are completely different projects. And most rollouts only attempt to address the first question. So why does the conventional approach fall short? This brings me to why the conventional approach has such a high failure rate. There's research that shows around 70% of digital transformation projects fail. 70%. And if you look at how most tool rollouts are run, it's not hard to see why. What typically happens is you hire an external consultant or you task an internal person to set up ClickUp. The person map the workflows, build out the entire workspace, train a team, and hand it over. There's a clear set of deliverables, a clean rollout timeline, and this feels fast, efficient, and professional. But it doesn't account for human nature. The team inherits a system they didn't build. They don't fully understand how it works under the hood, so they can't maintain it on their own. Any change, be it a new workflow, a new team member, a restructure, and suddenly you will need to call in external help again. You will need to remap the process, redo the implementation, and not before long, people slide back into old habits. And it's not because people aren't cooperative, but the friction here is simply too high. And people, most people at least, don't change behavior from one day to the next. So there is no such thing as clean rollouts when it comes to ClickUp. It will always be an iterative process. Now, to be fair, if you are rolling out an ERP system to hundreds or thousands of people, there's almost no other way to do it. The scale demands centralized implementation. But if you are using ClickUp, chances are you are a relatively small team. Your hierarchy is flatter, people are more opinionated, they care about how they work, and you need to make them feel like the solution is their idea, not something that is imposed upon them. So after rolling out tools for many organizations over 14 years, I found that one approach has by far the highest success rate. I call it the coaching approach. Instead of building the system for the team, I build it with the team. It's a bit like the old saying, give someone a fish and you feed them for a day. Teach them to fish and you feed them for a lifetime. It is the same idea. So rather than handing over a finished ClickUp setup, I focus on teaching the key people, the people whom I call changemakers, how to set up ClickUp themselves. These changemakers are usually the team leads of different functions. If there is no official team lead, then the most tech-savvy person in the function takes the lead. Here's an overview of how this looks like. First, I give them guardrails. So which features to use, which features to ignore for now. Within ClickUp, I would deactivate anything that a team should not use so that they don't get confused. Each function is also given a dedicated space that they can configure autonomously. I give them an initial training on what ClickUp is, how it works, and how to configure the space. Based off my understanding of their work and the company, I give each person suggestions on how their ClickUp setup could look like. I outline ownership and responsibilities clearly and define timings, milestones, and checkpoints. And then I give them time to build it themselves. Once they've built it, I work alongside them to stress test the setup and do fine-tuning. When we both agree that the space is ready, each change maker is responsible to onboard their own team members. They could request that I sit in their onboarding or not. And then they run with it until we reach another check-in point where we collate the feedback and fine-tune the system again. And it's a bit like the project work we used to do in uni, just minus the grades. Now, in this setup, my role shifts. I'm not a ClickUp implementer. I'm an organizational coach for behavior change. And that is not a passive role. It's very much like being a football coach. Think Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola. A football coach doesn't play. The team does. But he decides who plays where and why. He makes sure that a team is trained in their craft. He designs a game plan, so the tactics, the formations, the defense, and attack. And of course, he watches the team closely and screams at them to correct their moves. And just like a football coach, these are exactly the 4 main categories of things I pay close attention to. Translating that to project management talk, the first category is positioning. This means clarifying who owns what, who trains whom. It also means troubleshooting the underlying workflow. More often than not, I meet teams that have either no clear workflow or their workflow is overly complicated. Both are problematic when it comes to setting up the tool. So my job then becomes addressing that before the workflow can be translated into the tool. The second is training, making sure that the team is genuinely equipped to use the tool, not just given a 1-hour intro and then left to figure it out. That means tailored training sessions based on someone's role. Are they a change maker who needs to understand the structure deeply, or a user who mostly needs to know how to assign and update tasks? Those are very different training needs. I also do one-on-one coaching where it's needed, maintain a shared resource library so the team can refresh their memory, and keep a live FAQ document specific to how the company uses ClickUp. The third is the game plan. This is about designing how ClickUp actually shows up in the company's day-to-day life. I work with the teams to create what I call ways of working, and alongside that, something I call the 10 commandments of using ClickUp. Think of it as the agreed norms, how tasks get named, when statuses get updated, when something goes into ClickUp versus when it stays in Slack. We also figure out how ClickUp gets integrated in meetings. Is it open on screen during stand-ups? Is the weekly review run directly from a workspace? Getting the tool embedded in existing rituals is one of the most underrated parts of a successful rollout. And the fourth category is correcting. And this is the ongoing part, and honestly, the part that most rollouts skip entirely. I pay attention to drift. When task descriptions start going missing, or when decisions aren't being recorded, or when someone's reverting back to the spreadsheet that was supposed to be phased out. Catching that early and correcting that quickly without making people feel attacked is what keeps the system alive. I also design periodic reviews with the team so that they can make adjustments themselves over time. This ensures that the system evolves alongside the team. Why does this actually work? There are a few reasons why this works so well. People own what they built. When a team lead has personally set up their own ClickUp space, they have pride in it. They'll advocate for it. They'll onboard new team members into it. That ownership is incredibly hard to manufacture from the outside. It also removes a lot of pressure from me. Their team leads know their processes better than I ever could. I'm not coming in pretending to be a functional expert on their workflows. I'm the ClickUp and change management expert. They're the functional experts. Combining these two things builds trust on both sides. There's also a psychological piece. People tend to get their backs up when someone external comes in to tell them how to do the job better. With this approach, I'm not doing that. I'm more like a friendly neighborhood ClickUp police. And practically speaking, this saves significant time. In my experience, about 80% of the teams under 50 people don't have the processes mapped out on paper or anywhere. If an external consultant or even an internal expert is to handle the implementation by him or herself, he or she will first have to capture all that knowledge, usually as SOPs, before building. And that is very time-consuming. But if I work with the team leads to recreate the workflow directly inside ClickUp, we'll skip that entire step. The tool becomes the documentation. And finally, when I step back from the project, the knowledge stays in the organization. Multiple people are trained, which creates a network. People hold each other accountable, and there is a continuous adjustment cycle baked in so that the tools and the processes around it actually evolve as the team does. Ultimately, this creates a cultural shift. More people start examining their own workflows. They get comfortable combining process and tools. And at some point, you can't quite imagine going back to the way things were done before. Well, this approach is not perfect, and there are downsides, so I want to be very clear about that. This approach is messier. Different teams move at different speeds. Some team leads will nail the ClickUp setup in a week. Others might need 3 check-ins just to get the list structure right. So you have to be okay with that unevenness. It might also take longer to reach a completely live state than most conventional top-down approach. For a team under 50, you should expect this to take at least 3 months. It also requires more from whoever is running the rollout. So not just the ClickUp knowledge, but the ability to coach, to read the room, to correct behavior gently. This is not a junior role. So whether you're planning to do this yourself or bring someone in, it's worth being honest about whether that skill set is really there. And it requires genuine commitment from the team. Learning how to set up your own space takes time and effort. It is more work upfront than just inheriting a system someone built for you. But you are trying to change human behavior. The mess is temporary. The efficiency gains and the cultural shifts that come out the other side, those are long-lasting. And in my experience, very much worth it. So everything I've talked about today is anchored to ClickUp, but the same approach really applies to any project management tool or team productivity tool. Be it Asana, Monday, Notion, Trello, the same principles transfer. If you find this interesting, but you're still not sure how to actually apply this to your own team, subscribe and turn on the notifications because next week I'll be walking through my implementation approach step by step. Thank you for watching. If you find this useful, please don't forget to hit the like button below. And I want to say, ganbatte ne! See you next week. Ciao, ciao!